You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me, it's Alexa Carlton, Matt Gannon, and Michael Wax. Everybody, welcome back to the show. We're so excited. We're playing the intro again for you. Guys, welcome to the show. We got another fun one to talk about today. Of course, we'll be recapping both of the games that we last had at home at Amalie Arena for you and taking a look at what's ahead for the Lightning, because the theme of this podcast, staying alive. The Lightning staying alive, extending the series to Game 5. Before we get into all that fun, guys, how you doing today?
It's not a doom and gloom episode. We're going to come in here with a little bit of optimism, unlike last episode. I think we're all really pumped to kind of talk about these games and how we're, going to try to stay alive through this podcast and the rest of the series. Michael, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I know that you, much like a certain member of the Tampa Bay Lightning, have made a comeback after you expected not to play today. So we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about those two games. It's going to be a great episode. Alexa, how are you doing?
I am excellent. I am happy to be here. I am happy that we get to do another podcast and then at least one more. And hopefully we'll have plenty more to say after that, because we're going all the way. It's happening, I believe. 100%.
Well, before we get into all the positives of that, the Lightning did extend that series and force Game 5. We do have to quickly talk about, I think, Game 3 for the Lightning, because on the last podcast, the Bolts were down 0-2 in this series, and then they came back to Amalie, hoping to swing the series back in their favor, but things did not go too well for the Lightning as they lose 5-3 in their first game at Amalie. And the Panthers take a 3-0 lead in this series. Guys, another game where the Lightning kind of looked flat again in the first period. They had a strong second, but the Panthers take back over in the third period, and they're up 3-0. Matt, I'll start with you. How are you feeling after Game 3?
Oh, well, after Game 3, I was feeling pretty bad. I'm not going to, mince words. I was terrified. You're down 3-0 in a series, and what seemed like a pretty winnable game at the time, and that kind of did just escape us. At the time, I think it was one of the, better games played, but just, again, the problems we were facing the first two games is you're not playing a full 60 minutes, and you're letting the Panthers take advantage and really shut you down. Again, not happy with the result, and I think there were a couple of, pretty bad breakdowns and maybe one or two iffy goals to get past Vasilevsky in what seemed like a winnable game at certain points. So I was a little let down, and of course, after the game, I'm terrified, like I'm sure everybody else was, not giving up hope quite yet. And of course, with the win on yesterday, I guess, feeling a little bit better now. Our heads are still above water, but yeah, that game, it just got out of hand for us. But again, now with the most recent win, I have kind of tried to block that game out of my memory and just kind of look forward, look straight ahead, take it game by game, one at a time.
Yeah, I mean, just to start off with some positives in the negative, when the first Panthers goal was scored and then the Sorelli goal was disallowed, I was like, okay, like we're going to lose this game easily. Like, Panthers are going to run our show. And they immediately came back and they scored 2 in a row. Like, it was Stamkos, who, we'll talk about a lot in this episode. He's been awesome in this series. And then Tyler Mott, your fourth line, is finally on the board in the series. By the way, Tanner Jeannot picking up the only assist after getting scratched in Game 2. So he's been much better since he was scratched, which is really nice to see. I'm not going to lie it all on Vasilevsky. I know that he really helped us out in the first two games. He was the only reason those games were as competitive as they were. Like Matt mentioned, a couple of those goals should not go in. Specifically the second one where you're pushing and immediately they get a odd man rush the other way and they find a way to score where he doesn't even move. And then the fourth goal where it's just a backhander and he's wildly out of position. So like Matt said, trying to block that game out of my memory as much as possible. You do have to take the positives in that game, move forward with them, and try to improve on the negatives. But as we'll talk about, the transition from game 3 to game 4 is like night and day with this team.
Yeah, the Tyler Mott goal stood out to me too. I mentioned it in my TikTok because that was a snipe. That was a really good goal. Yeah, I mean, as much as Vasilevsky's had his struggles the last couple games in game 3 in particular, I think that it falls more on the defense in my view. I know that we've kind of gone to some links talking about the problems with the defense this season, but I mean, we're still kind of running an AHL squad out there right now as far as defense goes. I mean, and not to throw shade, where it's not due. I just think it's that's just the situation. So, I don't want to give Vasilevsky an out he doesn't deserve, but at the same time, I think that if you see what he did, especially in the first couple games, I think he's been one of our best players this series.
Yeah, and you look at this game, you had the empty net goal, but you take that one away, it was another 1-goal game. Every game has been a 1-goal game up until the last seconds because you count the empty net on this one. That's why this one's 5-3, so they end up losing by 2. But again, those are empty net goals. 1-goal games. The Lightning have been in these games, whether they deserve to be or not. They've been close. They've been right there, and you're seeing these. And I think that's what was the most frustrating things for these games. I'll tell you what, guys, I did not feel great after the 3-0 loss because to me, it just seemed like the Panthers were just better. I mean, it's plain and simple. They were outplaying the Lightning in almost every single way, and the Lightning have the talent, but they just weren't playing a good game. I mean, constantly coming out. We talked about this on the last podcast too, is that the biggest problem for the Lightning in those first 2 games is they had that flat start. And even though in the last couple of games, it seems like, okay, they're starting to look better here in the first couple of minutes, they still constantly fell behind in these games. And they did it here again in the first period. In fact, up until after this, after the third game here, game 3, the Lightning had only led for 7 minutes, I think, in total. They could not hold a lead. They were always playing from behind, and the Panthers kept capitalizing on their chances. And it just seemed like they were being outclassed in every way possible. I don't know if you guys had the same feeling after the first couple of games. I know, listen, we're Lightning fans. Of course, we had the confidence that they were going to be able to come back and do this. But to me, it just seemed like they could not get anything, not to mention the power play, which was 0 for 4 in this game. And the Panthers had no power plays. They did not get any help from the officiating. But I think the power play could get going. It just seemed like the Lightning were a mess.
Yeah, I mean, the power play did not look good. And you have to give credit where it's due. The Panthers have been playing some of their best hockey, this season. Maybe their best hockey in a couple of years. And it's not what we, have become accustomed to with Panthers hockey, whereas very fast-paced transitional hockey where they're getting you on the rush. They're just playing lockdown defense, and they're really neutralizing our top guys like Kucherov and Point, at least in, the first 3 games. They're really giving us no breathing room whatsoever, and without all 4 lines clicking, especially the bottom 6, there's not going to be a whole lot to go on, and there's not going to be any momentum to be built. So I have to give, as much as it pains me, I have to give credit where it is due. The Panthers are playing fantastic, but how long can they play that way? Can we, start to break down their defenses and really get, our top guys going? As we saw in this last game, it was kind of everybody, especially carried by, the top 6 guys. But we really started to find some of their weaknesses and find our own game. Of course, a loud Amalie arena really did help that cause. But again, long-winded saying, the Panthers have played very, very good hockey defensively. And maybe they're starting to figure out Bobrovsky too. It might be a one-off game, but I'm thinking, he might be a fraud Bobrovsky from here on out.
That's a bold claim, Matt.
They're going to clip that, man. They're going to clip that. They're going to roast you. it's not going to look good.
Hey, clicks are clicks.
We're gonna clip it when the Lightning come back and win this series, right?
Yeah.
We'll be able to put that one out. That's the positive thinking.
I have been really encouraged I was encouraged with their play in game 3. Like, I don't think they were spectacular, especially like the fact that they did lose the game, and they had some stretches in the first and the third where it was not great again, but they were figuring out certain tendencies that the Panthers were doing, and they were changing their games. And I would say that it was a little bit too late, because at the end of the game, they were down 3-0 in the series. And, as much as I think we would love them to come back and win in 7, it's, a statistical anomaly, even if I will always believe. But this is going to be, I think, specifically, and we've seen this in parts of game 3, most of game 4, looking ahead a little bit. This is going to be a masterclass of coaching for the next 3 games, I think, between Paul Maurice, who is so sound defensively as a coach, and that's where the Panthers get their defensive structure from, and John Cooper, who, we've talked about on the show before. He's not really an X's and O's guy, but man, can he make you believe that some crazy stuff can happen and leave the rest of the X's and O's to his assistants. Like, it's going to be an interesting dynamic.
I'll let you put your 2 cents in here in a second, Alexa. But Michael, you were saying it in the chat the other day. You're thinking John Cooper is being outcoached by Paul Maurice. Would you like to expand on that a bit? I do agree. I just want to hear your take on it.
I see we're bringing chat stuff into the show now.
It's not safe.
So, I think the way that, specifically in game 2, and again in game 3, I thought they were starting to figure out things a little bit more. But Paul Maurice was able to sort of do whatever he wanted. It's easier with home ice. I get that in games 1 and game 2, but I really didn't feel like specifically their power play entries for the Lightning, the way that they were able to get into their zone defense. They were late a couple of times. They haven't taken any too many men penalties yet in this series. It's John Cooper special. I know it's coming, but I felt like the way that Cooper was trying to dictate the lineup, Paul Maurice was easily seeing through that and just doing the same thing over and over again and just saying, beat me. Like, you can't beat me with this until you change your stuff. And in game 4, credit to him, he changed, and the Lightning won. That's why I think that going forward, it's going to be very interesting, especially with the Panthers now being the home team. The lines are how you dictate your lines is going to be different. How you manage your second period is going to be different, especially with the Lightning, who have been a notoriously awful second period road team this year. I'm looking forward to the rest of the series, and I know Alexi, you've been waiting, so I'll let you get to it. But just moving forward, I do think it's going to be an interesting coaching match.
Yeah, I think that the Panthers, I said, before the playoffs that I didn't really want us to play the Panthers, especially the way things went when we played them in the regular season. I had a feeling that they were going to be particularly tough, and I think that as far as lines go, I think that's an interesting point, because I think that they have been getting the matchups that they want, at least for the first few games. And I think that, again, when you look at like certain players like Verhaeghe and Reinhart and Kachuk, I think, they're stacked, and it's like when you have those guys and you can play shutdown defense, you're going to have a hard time as the Lightning, but regardless, it is heartening to see, Cooper responding, in a way that is as effective, looking at game 4 in particular.
Well, and let's talk about game 4, where the Lightning did respond in a big way. Michael, you mentioned the defense, and hey, the Lightning finally able to crack through in scoring as they score 6 goals in this game, up to where before this one they had only put up 2, 2, and 3 goals respectively. So the offense comes through. They're able to get the Panthers in their best point when it comes to defense. And the Lightning got off to an unbelievable start with going up 3-0 early in the first period. The Panthers do fight back in the second, making this a 1-goal game, but luckily a goal from the Lightning in that second period keeps them up in this one, and then they dominate the third period once again and get obviously a much needed win to force a game 5. The big thing I want to point out, guys, is the Brandon Hagel goal, not because of the goal from Hagel, but because of the celebration. It was absolutely beautiful. I think it was one of the best
Both
celebrations
Sellies.
of all time, just because he's, so elated, looking at the fans screaming right back at him, and they're just having this moment, which was amazing. I know the Lightning already said this too, but they're like, hey, we love the celebration, but we need to get this guy a new jersey, because I don't know what jersey he was wearing, or if it was a blue and orange. Does anybody know what
It
the
was
jersey was?
the Halifax Highlanders jersey from the Goon movie, which is
That's right.
It's a great jersey.
And hey, I give him credit. He wore blue to the Lightning game, so he had the colors right there. But we need to get him a Lightning jersey. Hey, if you can't get your hands on a Lightning jersey, I know where you can get some great Lightning merchandise to get over to the game. Head over to shop.rblrsports.com. Check out the awesome Team Inspire merch that we have there, and you can use code BOLTS to get 10% off your order. So be sure to head over there and check out that awesome merchandise, and you can head over to the game so you can rock the Bolts as well for those, in case Hagel comes over to you to celebrate, so you can look good in style as well. So big game for the Lightning in this one. The offense comes through. What do we like from this game, guys?
What's not to like about it? It was, the best game objectively that a team has played this series, I'd say. I mean, you got the goals, and there were some defensive lapses, and Vazzy, he was pretty good this game, but there was 1 or 2 goals that I wasn't a huge fan of, but I'm not going to blame, much or anything on him. It was, all the guys
came
you
out
really
back surgery, Matt. I mean, how much?
That's news to me. And I think we're kind of burying the lead. I feel like this kind of could have been the lead in the show. Mikhail Sergachev back on the ice. And not only him back on the ice and playing a limited role, played 17 minutes, and he looked very good. I think we all, maybe not got accustomed to playing without Sergachev, but I think we forgot just how good he is. And, the Sergey haters are pretty quiet after that game. I thought he was really solid. There's only really one time that, he failed to get the puck out of the zone. It didn't lead to any goal against or anything, but a couple of good chances. But other than that, I thought Sergey looked really solid, even getting a primary assist on that Hagel goal leading up to the beautiful Selly, like Jake said. He looked really good. And it's not like he's playing as usual, 22 to 25 minutes or whatever. 17 minutes is still a lot for coming off of broken or a fractured tibia and fibula or whatever. Just like Fazzy coming off back surgery, Sergey coming off of that surgery. That's crazy. And so just props to him. I mean, it's got to be such a good feeling for, not even just his Russian, friends on the team, Vazzy and Kuch, but everybody. I mean, Sergey is the king of vibes, and vibes are, that's what I run on in my life. I can only imagine what it does to a very close knit hockey team, seeing your guy back on the ice like that. It had to give him a great boost of energy, especially him getting that primary assist. I think it might be getting a little understated how much his presence did help the guys out. But again, they really used the team as a whole. They used momentum this game, and it was an iffy second period. I can't lie. I got pretty scared when the score was 4-1 and then 4-2 and then 4-3. And then Stamkos comes in and gets us the insurance marker there with the 5-3 goal, which was an incredible goal. Man, Stamkos, I think we're going to get to him a little bit later. But again, just an all-around great effort from everybody involved. Again, a couple defensive lapses in the late second period, but I think pretty much the rest of the game was exactly what you wanted to see. I did miss about the first 10 minutes of the game. I was listening to it on the broadcast. But again, just they really used momentum, which has been a huge issue for this team, not only these playoffs, but, most of the regular season, not being able to handle momentum swings, whether it be good or bad. They really tapped into it this game, and I was really, really, excited and pleased with the effort overall. It was the closest they have played to a 60-minute hockey game in weeks, going back into the late regular season. I think you're muted.
Muted.
How does this happen every show? Okay, I think the thing that really helped the Lightning in this one is like Kucherov had a hit like in the defensive zone within the first 2 minutes, and I was like, okay, so he's engaged, which is fantastic news because had not really been engaged the first 3 games. I'm not gonna lie. And if he was engaged, he wasn't putting up production. So that if he's not putting up production, you're not going to win. Braden Point was noticeably the best forward on the ice for the Lightning. He finally was able to unlock his speed and use it to not necessarily get around guys, but certainly the wraparound goal, he definitely used it to get around guys. But
just create space.
Yeah, exactly. The wheel around thing that he does when he gets inside, it was finally working.
Yeah.
He was finally able to get a little bit of space between him and the defender, and that wasn't happening at all in the first 3 games of the series. I thought Emil Lilleberg was fantastic, and he did finish advanced stats-wise as the best defense in the game, not necessarily the best overall metrics, but the best defender in the game, which you need defense if you're going to win. And then Matt Dumba with a pirouette assist that I will be playing over and over again. He did have the worst defensive metrics by a wide margin, but who cares? He had a pirouette assist, and that was really nice to see.
Advanced stats are overrated anyway.
Sure. If you want to go down that route. Very happy with the way the Game 4 went, and I think and we'll get to it in the road ahead. Things changed. I hope they did as a Lightning fan, but things changed for the Lightning going into Game 5.
The vibes are good. The vibes are very solid. That's for sure. I think that John Cooper said something along the lines of I don't know if it was practice or what it was, but it was if you don't believe, then don't show up, kind of thing. And the fans, I think they projected the word believe on the ice before the game. So that's the phrase and that's the vibe. I think that everybody is firing on all cylinders in Game 4. I think that everybody's head was in the game, and everybody knows what the goal is and where we're heading. So like I said at the beginning, I believe 100%. I am all in for this right now. So that's where I'm at.
Alexa, it's funny you mentioned the quote from Cooper saying, "Don't show up to the ice if you don't believe." I think right after, because he said that after Game 3, I believe it was, and then the Lightning had a optional skate the next day. I think there were 5 players that were there, and so for a minute I was like, well, I hope everybody believes. At least a lot of people didn't show up to the ice, but they did show up in Game 4, no question about it. Matt, you mentioned Sergachev, rightfully so. He came back and definitely provided a big boost. Cooper talked about it, how normally in the introductions you can hear the players' names, a light cheer, but you can always hear Paul Porter, who is back in the building this time, because normally he's also doing the Magic games as well, since they're in their own postseason run. But he's back in the building, and normally you can hear him say everybody's name until Vasilevsky, and then he gets the biggest cheer. When he said Sergachev, if you go back and listen to those videos, you can't hear him say Vasilevsky's name because everybody got so excited, and that carried all the way throughout. And Cooper mentioned that was a big boost for them. So my question, though, to you guys is it at all maybe a little bit worried? Maybe not concerning is probably not the right word, but do you think that's a big part of the Lightning's reason they have success in this game? Are they going to be able to replicate that energy? Because it seems like it really helped them in that first period. They came out, take a 3-0 lead after 20 minutes. You're not going to have that same energy this time, now going on the road especially, and you don't have a player coming back from injury. Does that worry you guys at all, or do you think they'll be able to create energy from something completely different this time?
I'm not going to say I'm not worried, but, you've got 8 of the most important guys from your 2020 bubble win where you had no energy, you had no outside noise or pressure or anything like that. I get opposing buildings can, put the pressure on you, but this is a team that doesn't need, outside noise to really give them that extra push. Yeah, it does help, and yeah, it does hurt sometimes, but when you've got the same core, these guys can get it done no matter the situation. It doesn't matter if you're home or away. Again, it helps. But I'm not worried about it. This team, again, hopefully they can, like I was saying, carry this momentum not only just in a game, but through the rest of this series. It might seem like an insurmountable task, but if there's any team that can do it, it's going to be this generation of Lightning players. I know it's not the same team we've had in the past, but yeah, just I like Alexa said, like John Cooper said, I believe. So, do you guys believe?
I absolutely believe. I do want to pull this up. I'll get to what I want to say, and then I'll get to the stat. But they just need to score first. I really think that in Game 5 in particular, they just need to score first, and they'll be okay. And the reason I think that is because Andre Vasilevsky has played in 7 elimination games since 2019. The most amount of goals that he's given up in a single game is 3, which was last game.
That one, yeah.
You are cooked if the Lightning score first. He has multiple shutouts. He has multiple games where he's given up either 2, 1, or 0 goals, like 6 of 7, where he's given up 2 or fewer goals. And then there's the Panthers one. Like maybe the Panthers have found something that other teams haven't. But it shows a track record of when the Lightning's backs are against the wall, the guy that you need to be the least concerned about is the guy between the pipes. So if you can score first, not only does that create doubt in the Panthers' mind, but now all you need to do is not rely necessarily. You still need to play a strong defensive game. But you can be a little bit less worried with the guy that you have between the pipes.
I'm a lot calmer now that you said that, Michael. It really makes me feel better.
Well, I mean, look at Game 3, and the Lightning scored 6 goals, and Michael, as you mentioned, Vazzy had only let up 3 in elimination games. The offense came through. We talked about this in our TPR preview for round 1. The Panthers' biggest advantage from statistics-wise in the regular season was the goals against. The Panthers had only been letting in, I think it was 2.41 goals against per game. The Lightning broke through offensively, which was a huge help for them, and they got the offense going. And that's the game. If they play a high-scoring offensive game, these are the games they win. Again, you look back to the last 3 games. The Lightning were not scoring goals. The most goals they got was 3 in Game 3, so they weren't scoring. This game they are scoring, and we see a big momentum swing. I think a big part of that, and we kind of mentioned Point, Kucherov, a lot better in this game in Game 4, and they were on a line this time with Steven Stamkos, who we've mentioned has been unbelievable. He's got 5 goals in 4 games so far right now, and Stamkos now playing with Kucherov and Point, a line we didn't see too much during this regular season because they kind of broke him up a little bit, but it seemed like those guys getting on the line with Steven Stamkos has been playing so darn good. He had the unbelievable block, by the way, in Game 3, which I forgot to mention. Even though it didn't result in anything for the Lightning, it was a huge block just to see him sacrificing his body out there and keeping that game alive for longer than it would have been. But anyway, Stamkos seems like he really helped out Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point. So, Alexa, I'll start with you this time. What is Steven Stamkos doing? I mean, how are you feeling going forward here with Stamkos on the line now with Point and Kucherov, and is he helping?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love him on that line. He's seeing his shots. He's putting the puck exactly where he wants it. That, top right shelf, it just tucking it in. It's a beautiful thing to see. And, I think, I think he's going to continue to play just as well, tomorrow. We'll see what happens, but I think he's been great.
I gotta be honest. He's been great. Don't get me wrong. I hate that line. I hated that line in the regular season. And when push comes to shove, I'm willing to put that hate aside to watch the Lightning win games. But I don't think it's just defensively responsible enough. It's so good offensively, and when the offense isn't there, they're getting eaten alive with defense. But since the offense is working, we're going to focus on the positives. Dude, he's been unbelievable. Stamkos has been so good in this series that I want to say it's like the first time since maybe like the 2016 run or it might be the 2021 run where he's like scored 5 goals in a 5-game span. Like he's been that good. He did in 2018. I remember that. When it comes to the playoffs, there's no one you want more. Like 247 in 2020. One shift, the guy scored a goal. If there's anyone on the roster that you can kind of rely on to be a proven playoff performer, it's number one, it's all 3 of those top line guys. But Steven Stamkos has been that guy since 2011. Like he's been that for almost a decade and a half, which, God, that makes a lot of us sound old because we've been watching that long. But it's just fantastic stuff from Stamkos.
And he has, actually maybe not, but he has probably had better stretches, with more goals or more points, in a 5-game span or 4-game span in his career. But since I've watched Steven Stamkos, since I've watched the Lightning, this might be the most dynamic I've seen him play. For a couple of years there, he was looking like, just kind of a power play one-timer specialist, especially in the 2021 run. Like he was good, but, he was only kind of half of a player, wouldn't really back check, wouldn't really lay the body. This is, the best I've seen him, play in 200 feet of the ice, maybe all time. He's not laying huge hits, but he's getting physical. He's, leading his team. He's never not led his team, but he's leading his team by example. He's playing very smart defensively, and he's not just getting these goals from, the Stammer's office spot. He's getting them from all around the ice. Of course, they're all on the left side of the ice, but they're up and down where he's getting them from. From right in front of the goal or from pretty much the blue line, like, the 5th goal was. He is really, really playing very dynamic, and, surprisingly, he's the one that's kind of lifting that top line instead of it being, Nikita Kucherov or Braden Point. Michael, I'm with you where I'm, kind of skeptical about, the overload line, if you want to call it that, the big boy line with,
I call it the Megadeth line.
I like that. And, I'm skeptical about it too, because you're right. The defense, leaves a lot to be desired from the forward group there, but, they really are elevating their game. And it's Steven Stamkos, for a change recently, lifting Braden Point and Kucherov into relevancy and him dragging them through this series. Not to say that they're not carrying their own weight, but it took them, 2 or so games to really find themselves. Kucherov, he did not look like himself throughout the first 2 games, and even game 3, a little suspect. I know he's still racking up points and racking up assists, but he doesn't look like Nikita Kucherov. Also doesn't help that, the Panthers are singling him out. But Steven Stamkos, he's finding a way to really, really get it done no matter where he is on the ice. Long-winded to say, just very dynamic and some of the most, versatile hockey I've seen him play in quite some time, if not ever.
A blank check is what JBB needs to bring to Steven Stamkos when the negotiations come back. And this is something we haven't talked about since the start of the season. We'll wait to get into that conversation till the offseason comes. But Stamkos has been that good. He is proving once again that he is nowhere near anywhere done. He's been absolutely fantastic for the Lightning in these playoffs. I know you guys don't love that line from the defensive side of things, which makes sense. But for me, that should absolutely still be a line in the next game for the Lightning, because listen, it's going to be crazy to say, but the defense has actually been okay for the Lightning in this postseason run. Like, it hasn't been fantastic, but for the most part, you've held the Panthers. I know they're not a crazy scoring team, and they're more of a defensive team, as we talked about, but for the most part, they've been able to hold the Panthers to 3 goals. They had 5 goals in the 1 game. But the offense has been the spot that's lacking. And when you put that line together, you got your offense. Will that continue for the rest of the series? I don't know, because you guys have talked about often that line can get a little weird sometimes, especially when the offense isn't coming through. It looks really bad. But You don't have any time to wait for other guys to pick up offensively. It helped the Lightning a ton putting Stamkos on that line. I would fully expect to see them as a line again in Game 5 for the Bolts, which, by the way, is going to be – go ahead, Matt.
Michael, and I do really like the Megadeth line, but it doesn't have the same ring as the Einstein line.
The Einstein line is still that's a top tier name for Matt.
I've had the Megadeth line implanted in my head since like 2019, so it's gonna take some getting used to. But I like the Einstein.
Well, let's do this. We shouted out Stamkos, obviously, who's been probably the best player for the Lightning this postseason so far. But guys, anybody else that stuck out to you more likely than in Game 4, because just the first 3 games weren't great, but just in this series overall, what other players have stood out for you that you thought have played well so far?
Well, the first one that came to my mind was Carter Verhaeghe. He's been playing really good. But this ain't a Panthers podcast. One person I want to kind of shout out, it's half answering your question, is Brandon Hagel. And I know you'll never hear any Brandon Hagel slander, Jake, but his first game, it was rough. It was one of the rougher games I've ever seen him play in a Bolts uniform. And Game 2 didn't help his case either. Game 3, he was quite relevant. And Game 4 was, other than it being the Steven Stamkos show, it was also the Brandon Hagel show as well. So it took him a little bit to really find his game as well, which is very unlike him. He's not a streaky player. Even if he's not scoring, he's getting it done in all areas of the ice. But I just want to give him props that he is really, really, made up for a really rough Game 1. And I know I didn't make a big deal about it in last week's episode. I didn't really, there were a lot, bigger fish to fry. But I just want to give him, the props that he is due for really, picking up his slack and, arguably overperforming.
I feel like I shout this guy out all the time. I will continue to do so. I have already done it once this podcast. And he had a terrible game too. But since we're talking about games 3 and 4, Emil Lilleberg, I thought he brought a really good, steady presence to that third pair, specifically being paired with Crozier last game. They were not good in Game 2 together, but they were very good in Game 4 together. I think a lot of that has to do with Sergachev coming back. It takes weight off of a lot of guys' shoulders. Does Sergachev coming back push Matt Dumba to the top pair? Yes, it does. Did that make me feel confident? No, it did not. But we're here to talk about Lilleberg and Crozier. And for 2 young guys, I think they've done an exceptional job on defense in this series. Reminds me a lot, in a different way, but just sort of the young guy in his first playoff series, of Darren Radish last year. Darren Radish was one of the best defenders on Lightning last year in the playoffs
to me.
against Toronto.
Yeah, I thought we found
a noted Darren Radish hater.
That was last year's me.
And, if we want to throw it way back, 2018, Eric Cernak in his first playoffs series got the Lightning to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, you need guys that are young to be able to get that sort of experience and step up in big-time situations. I thought those 2 did an excellent job, Lilleberg specifically, because he played on the PK, and Crozier did not, I believe. But great, no notes.
I'm going to go with a deep cut. Nick Paul. Nick Paul, I think, has been great. I'm a huge Nick Paul stan regardless. So I am a little biased. But he's been winning some important faceoffs. He's had a couple big goals. And, he has the best beard on the team. So, props to Nick Paul.
Your bias is extremely warranted, Alexa. I don't know why there's people that don't like Nick Paul. He's such a good player.
I love Nick Paul. I think maybe some of that is due to he got off to such a good start this season and then kind of quieted down for a little bit and came back down to earth. But he's been great, and he came through for the Lightning when they needed it.
Some might have considered him a power play merchant to start the year. I want to say he had like 1 even strength goal compared to 7 power play goals to start the year. But I don't care. He's great.
I got to say, for the record, listen, anytime I hate when people bring up power play merchant or, whatever merchant of anything. Because listen, at the end of the day, goals are goals. And
Yeah.
the power play counts just the same as an even strength goal does on the scoreboard. I don't care how you score, power play, shorthanded, or 5-on-5. Michael, you can shake your head all you want, but goals are goals.
Nathan McKinnon is an altitude merchant.
I know the argument against Kucherov for the MVP. Oh, he's a power play merchant. Since when did scoring on the power play become a bad thing? Like,
right,
news to me.
Exactly. It didn't. And goals are goals. They don't. What's the saying? They don't ask you.
They don't ask how. They ask how many.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Matt.
And we're really making this a tangent, but with the Nick Paul thing and people saying, good first half and slow second half, I think people are kind of stuck on last year where he scored, 17 goals and then disappeared like the Avatar. I don't know if he got a goal for the rest of the season or like maybe one or two really late. This season, I thought he was fairly consistent. He's not a top line guy, but he was effective on the power play. He was on the first unit essentially the whole year. He finished with 23 goals, like career high in points and assists, I want to say. Definitely power play goals. I want to say he was probably, one of the top guys on the team in power play goals as well. But 23 goals, I mean, that's not really a fluke. Nick Paul is a fantastic player. And his plus minus wasn't too appealing this year, but I still think he's, a very solid defensive player. Yeah, I think he just needs to use his strength more. He uses his frame, just not necessarily his strength, kind of like Victor Hedman does, if you know what I mean. Victor Hedman will never lay a hit in his life unless it's on Barclay Goodrow or Ben Bishop. But
wow, okay, you want to talk about deep cuts? That's deep cut right there, Matt.
You kick Matt out for that one.
Listen, I don't like it any more than you guys.
You said
it. Facts are facts.
Let's stick to the positives, though, right now. But yeah. And Matt, I mean, listen, look, and defensive-wise, Lilleberg and Crozier, who are two young guys and playing, Michael, you mentioned that they're playing well, excites me for the future, right? If this is how you're playing in your first year as a rookie in a high-pressure situation, that's fantastic. They can only go up from here, ideally. And, Michael, you brought up a good point, too. With Sergachev coming back, it's not just that they have Sergachev back in the lineup. He's been good for them. But taking off the pressure of Crozier and, guys like Crozier and Lilleberg who were they playing second line in game two or second D pair?
They were playing second pair minutes.
Second pair. And then they have to play third pair when Sergachev comes back. And that's definitely a big help. So it's something I didn't even think about. But you bring up a good point there, Michael. By the way, Sergachev coming back is unbelievable. I did not see that coming at all. In game 4. I was shocked when he was out there for warmups, but good for him for fighting his way back.
I saw somebody say he must have Mark Stone's doctor.
Hey, he gave credit to Stamkos. He gave credit to Stamkos saying like he saw the recovery videos from Stammer, and that's what kind of motivated him to get back. And he did it, and it definitely energized the Bolts for game 4. But let's look ahead here for the Lightning now. Still a tall task to go. You got one game in the books. You still have to win 3 in a row, facing elimination. And now, again, as we mentioned, the series shifting back to Sunrise, things become more difficult. You don't have the crowd on your side anymore. The line changes. That's the advantage back towards the Panthers. They get second change, all that fun stuff. So my question to you guys is, what do the Lightning need to do to get this series at least back to Tampa? Let's not even look ahead at trying to become the 5th team ever to come back down from 3-0. What do they need to do to at least get this series back to Tampa for a game 6?
I know I keep going first, but this is probably going to be the last time I'm going to do it. I think what the Lightning need to do to win is score more goals than their opponent.
Really?
No, you can go, Alexa.
No. I was just saying that was a hot take. That was real spicy.
I make that post every year in like one of the Facebook groups, and people are like, "Well, duh." They just don't understand that it's like satire, sarcasm. Just feed off.
Wrong, though. You're not wrong.
No, but just feed off of the momentum. Again, the third time I'm saying it today is just carry on the vibes and the momentum. Even if, your series ends at home, your season ends at home, that sucks, but it's better to do it, than on the road. You get to say goodbye to your fans or whatever. Maybe you can have that in the back. It's probably not even in their mind. They're just thinking, go, 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 go. But just, block out the noise from the, all 12 of the Panthers fans and just continue with the vibes and carry that momentum and keep finding a way to, get pucks past Bob Frodsky. That's a better, not Fraud Bobsky or whatever I said earlier, Bob Frodsky. That's what it is. I'm getting unhinged on this back half of the show.
Yes, you are. So I would like to see, and we saw it in game 3 because they put us up 2-1. But I'm going to bring up another stat because I'm a stat guy, I guess, on the show. But I want to see the fourth line get involved again. I don't know how many minutes they're going to play, but out of every forward line in the entire playoffs, minimum 20 minutes 5-on-5, they are the 5th best at expected goals. They've only got 1 in 4 games. I expect them to get another one if this is the way that they're going to keep playing. If you can get depth scoring, which I've said on every single show, that makes things so much easier for all your stars. And it would be nice to keep scoring on the power play too, because that really did help the Lightning in game 4.
Yeah, I agree. Depth scoring and special teams. Absolutely. And more from the top line, more from everybody. I don't know. I don't have much more to say. I believe.
Theme of the show.
You know what? Sometimes that's all you need to say is I believe. Listen, the Lightning have basically zero room for error at this point, now facing elimination. Michael, I'm going to go back to what you said earlier and just saying score first. So far, the team that has scored first in this series has won the game. And the Lightning a couple of times now have had some they were terrible in game 1 to start the game. They've slowly gotten better each time, but scoring first is going to be a huge thing for them just to get their confidence up and silence that crowd down there in Sunrise. So you've got to score first. I think that's a huge key for them. Obviously, all the other things too, power play, as you guys mentioned, that's going to be big. It got going for the Lightning and keeping that offense up. But score first for me is the big key moving forward to get this back to a game 6. I would love to hear what you guys have to say as well. Let us know in the comments down below. What are your keys for the Lightning? Who are your favorite players from this series so far? Any and all thoughts, let us know down in the comments below. Guys, anything else for the Bolts here before we wrap things up here?
I believe,
right?
I believe, yeah.
That's the way to end it here. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this another episode here on RBR Lightning. Don't forget to follow us on social media at RBR Lightning or at RBLR Sports to check out the other amazing podcasts we have here as well. The Rowdies, the Bucks, and the Rays as well. That'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll talk to you next time. Go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.